I've given you so many historical accounts already. I'm tired of reading. My throat dry. Y'all can look this stuff up. I've given you names. I've given you dates, books, titles in these videos. Places to search, names, terms to call that they called them in ancient times before white supremacy existed. What's going on? I'm AnokhiTheOne, back with another video, and in this video I am going to be answering the question, or I'm going to be responding to the statement that homosexuality is white supremacy. Makes no damn sense. Absolutely no sense. Okay. But they'll try to make it make sense. And the easiest way to debunk this foolishness is just history. It's history. It's literally history. And because a lot of people think that they're African, a lot of people that look like me think they're African, we're going to go to Africa. And for the people who are indigenous to America, they look like me, I'm going to go to ancient America. I'm going to go to both. Okay. But also when it comes to like populating the earth type stuff, what stops a gay man from populating the earth? What stops a lesbian from populating the earth? And also it's important to note that LGBT people are 4% of the population. 4% of the American population. So do you really think that 4% of the American population and even smaller percent of the black population is able to destroy large populations of people by simply not having children? There's a lot of people who are straight that don't have children and that can't have children or don't want to have children. But gay people, we can have children. But let's go to history, okay? We're going to start in West Africa because that's where they tell us that we're from. But I am clear that I am Choctaw, and I have Choctaw. I can go to Choctaw. I can talk about the Choctaw. They say the word they use is sodomy. In modern times they use homosexuality, but if you want to research ancient history, okay, from these Spaniards who was traveling all these places and seeing what we was doing and adopting our culture, like, it's crazy how people want to say that these hoteps, okay, these pharaohs and these Egyptians and all these people, okay, wearing unks and got tattoos of Africa, okay, they want to say that the Greeks got everything from the Egyptians. Everything from the Egyptians. Everything from the Egyptians. We all know that how Greeks feel about each other. The ancient Greek men was feeling about each other. Okay, so did they skip that part, or did they remix that part, or did they get that part mixed up? What happened there? They did not. They absolutely did not. I mean, the Egyptians were doing the same thing. Okay, everybody, everywhere, all four corners of the earth. Okay, and if you actually do the history, they have very similar purposes. And every culture, just about every indigenous culture, I have a book, 75 pages. Okay. And I had to find it on this dingy website. I had to be guided by the universe, by God, by my ancestors, by my spirit guide to find this information that these people already know. Okay, and if you actually ask the right questions, you'll find it. Okay, but you're not asking any questions really. You're just making assumptions and you're just going off this Bible. A lot of you, even though you try to claim that you're not religious at all, but the only backing that you have, or fact that this is not white supremacy, or that it is white supremacy, or whatever it is from religion, from Christianity. When the version of the Bible, the King James version of the Bible that you probably read, came from King James, okay, who was very much a feminine bisexual man. So much so, he was so feminine that his friends would call him Queen James. And they all laughed about it. And he laughed too, because he knew he was feminine. This is who advocated for the King James Bible. It wasn't even until the 40s that the word homosexual, 1940, not the 1640, 17, 18, 1940s. And when I read this, I could see, now that makes so much sense, because they were doing all this observation and study, and a lot of Jews, they had a whole library. These Jewish people had a huge database of their discoveries of sexuality among native cultures all around the world. Okay? Because they're just having the ability to fly in planes. They're just having the ability to really have transportation. I asked my grandpa, I'm like, my grandpa was telling me how his grandmother, who always said she was native. I mean, they really are, but she was light-skinned enough to be able to say it out loud and tell everybody she was native. Okay, so he said her and her sister got split up and they never saw each other again. And he was like, yeah, she lived right down the street and they could never find her. And I was like, why she couldn't go see her sister if her sister's right down the street? And he was like, well, we didn't have cars. I was just like, what? And it never dawned on me how hard transportation was. Just 100 years ago, he was 91 years old. When he was a child, when he was a teenager, it was hard. Transportation was hard, okay, for average people. So imagine how they can manipulate these country people, these native people who had never been even out of their state, okay, out of their city, out of their little town, okay, to believe certain things, okay, about the entire world. We have internet now. Stop playing. Okay, so let's read. And I talked about this in another video, but you may not have seen it. Let's talk about. Let's go into history. Okay, I read this before, but I'm gonna read it again for you guys. The many different tribal cultures of sub-Saharan Africa have accommodated homosexuality and transgender behavior in a variety of ways since time immemorial. Since time immemorial. I didn't say it, they said it. Okay, but if you try to that's the crazy thing about Hotep. They will claim that something is white supremacy based on white supremacy. Like, they will say, okay, this is white supremacy, but all of their points as to why it's white supremacy comes from rhetoric that they believed, right? That these white people believed when they observed what we was already doing, right? It's so crazy. And then they'll turn around and say, oh, you can't depend on their records. You just have to depend on what I'm coming up in my mind, coming up with in my mind, and with no kind of context or nothing. Okay, no historical. I can't go back and research it or nothing. Okay, and it's all in modern times in the last 100 years. I don't trust much of anything, okay, that's coming out, there's new stories that's coming out in the past 100 years, because it's been nothing but propaganda. Okay, and these are the times when they were coming up with the things to know what to target. It was so hard for me to find this information. Okay, so I went through for years, okay, trying to find this type of information. Guided, spiritual guidance. You cannot find this information without spiritual guidance. This would tell you something. That should tell you something right there. The many different tribal cultures of sub-Saharan Africa have accommodated homosexuality and transgender behavior in a variety of ways since time immemorial. Although no indigenous system of writing existed in this region prior to the 19th century, you lie. Y'all be burning stuff up. Y'all be burning books. Shut it. Say it. Y'all know what y'all be doing. Early European settlers and colonists were quick to record the numerous examples of gender diversity they observed among African natives. The ancient city of Timbuktu, in what is now Mali, was once one of the continent's most prosperous and affluent trading centers. Prior to widespread maritime shipping, West Africa's riches were sent up the Niger River to Timbuktu, where Berber and Arab traders carried the merchandise across the Sahara Desert to ports along the Mediterranean. Among the precious cargo were African slaves, the most popular of which were women and effeminate boys. Women and effeminate boys. That was their riches. Okay, it says prior to the widespread maritime shipping, West Africa's riches were sent up the Niger. Okay. The boy slaves were often castrated by the Arabs. Okay, forced. They were castrated by the Arabs, so they were forced to be transitioned or forced to remain effeminate. Pay attention. Sold as domestic servants or homosexual concubines. Okay, concubine is a mistress. It's a side piece. Okay, and thus distributed throughout the ancient world. In the 16th, throughout the whole ancient world. In the 16th century, Portugal and Spain circumvented the sub-Sahara trading routes by establishing shipping ports along Africa's west coast. The slave trade was especially lucrative, and African Negroes were in high demand with the white and Hispanic landholders in the New World. One of the earliest accounts of homosexuality in sub-Saharan Africa comes from Denunciations of Bahia. Okay, Denunciations of Bahia, Bahia, 1591 to 1593. A series of court records kept during the Portuguese Inquisitions of Brazil. The account was used to convict a Congolese slave, Francisco Manicongo, of sodomy, which is basically having sex with another man. And in this context, but in the Bible context, it's rape, which they put that together. They put that in there so they can condemn it, so they can get our riches. So they can condemn it, so they can send our riches up the river. Okay. And you will understand why I said that in a minute. The account was used to convince the Congolese slave. Okay. This is what they wrote. Quote, in Angola, the Congo, it is customary among the pagan Negroes. So pagan basically means any religion in spiritual practice that's not Christian or one of their religions that they approved. Okay. The pagan Negroes to wear a loincloth with the ends in front, which leaves an opening in the rear. This custom being adopted by the sodomitic Negroes, which is basically the gays, who serve as passive women in the abominable sin. This is what these Catholics are saying. These passives are called Jimbanda in the language of Angola and the Congo. So they have native names. They have native names for these people. But y'all want to act like this is new. This is 1600s, 1500s, which means passive sodomites, which means bottom, which means, that's what it means, feminine boy, feminine man. And I think they call boys feminine boys, even if they're men. So, grown. The accuser claimed to have seen Francisco Manicongo wearing a loincloth such as passive sodomites wear in his land of the Congo and immediately rebuked him. How you gonna rebuke him in his own land? Get out the land! Ridiculous. From the 17th century forward, a growing number of reports from European colonialists documented sodomy and cross-dressing among African natives. In 1687, Italian missionary Giovanni Cavazzi wrote a slanderous account of an unusual but locally venerated priest of the Nkwiti Congo kingdom, known as Ganga ya Chibado. The Congo priest wore women's clothing and was referred to as grandmother. French clergyman Jean-Baptiste Labat, in his early 18th century observation of African slaves living in the Caribbean, similarly mentioned funeral rites performed by a Congo priest that involved homosexual acts. Okay? Now, this is very important because this tells you, okay, this tells you that before any European contact, not only were there people having same-sex relationships, okay, and I'm gonna go to a whole nother region of Africa as well. They have all of the regions with all of the receipts, okay. Not only was this happening, it was normal, it was a part of the culture, and it was spiritual. There were priests, there were shamans, they were a part of the culture. Now, and it wasn't until 1800, check this out. The royal kings of early Uganda was well known for their harems containing both women and men. Prior to the British takeover in 1886, this is very late. My great-great-grandfather was born before this. Okay. And this is in West Africa. This is 1886. King Mwanga's persecution of Christian pages was said to be largely motivated by their rejection of his amorous advances. The king found it increasingly difficult to staff his harem of page boys and became enraged when his favorite Mwafu also rejected him. So this Ugandan king, okay, and a lot of the early royal kings of Uganda were mad. They rejected Christianity because it would not allow them. They saw that the boys or the men, the effeminate men that they were attracted to, didn't want to be with them anymore. Okay, so one, that tells you that they were not bound to them. They weren't in bondage, right? Okay, they were choosing to be with these men. And two, that tells you that these kings, these indigenous kings, before these British Europeans came over there, and we don't know if these Europeans are white or black, okay, they were in a relationship. They were together. They agreed to be in this relationship, and it was a part of the culture, and they didn't see nothing wrong with it until the Europeans came. All right. In 1957, a whole 100 years later, okay, my grandpa was born before 1947. My mom was almost born at this time. In 1957, cross-dressing transgenders were reported as common in Uganda's Eteso and Gisu tribes. Okay, this is recent. And among the Nyoro, an initiation ceremony still practiced today requires new initiates to demonstrate spirit possession by transforming themselves into women. In the Bantu languages of Central Africa, lesbians are called masago to grind, which describes their sexual acts. The masago women of Uganda resist marriage to men and are interested in career and engage in loving affairs between themselves. And this is a huge point. This is a huge point. Okay, this is a huge point right here. It's a huge point. This is why I say they started creating propaganda. After they observed, after they paid attention, they took notes, because they're just copycatting. They go to the indigenous tribes, okay? They document everything, they record everything, And the most powerful things that they record, the things that allowed these people to thrive, the things that gave these people wealth, that helped them build their empires, right? These are the things that they eliminate, okay? That they don't put in the African American studies programs, okay? These are the things that they do the opposite, okay? They make it seem like that didn't even exist. Omit. And then them and their elite clubs with their elite people, they sit up here and do this stuff together, okay? Listen to this. Among the Bantu-speaking tribes north of the Congo River in what is now Gabon and Cameroon, homosexual intercourse was considered beyond nkma, or a medicine for wealth, okay? According to German ethnographer Gunther Tessmann in 1904, right around the time when they really started pushing the propaganda against gay people in the United States, especially among the Black community. This is when the word homosexual was created. This is around the time when the word homosexual was created and turned into a mental illness. Okay, so these same hoteps that want to say, it was deemed a mental illness. By who? These Europeans that was observing the natives, observing them thriving, okay? Observing them thriving, creating wealth. And why? Why would they do that? Why would they say it's a mental illness that needs to be treated and needs to be shock therapied to death and that needs to be banished from your community? Well, they want to take your land. They want your wealth. They want your businesses. They want y'all to fight to fight to get them money. They want y'all to fight to shut down your Black-owned business so you can go and cater to their businesses. They don't want you to have gatekeepers. They want their sodomites coming in your community. They don't want gatekeepers. They want their Catholic priests or their trained preachers. Okay, they want their missionaries coming through your neighborhood, through your country, through your tribe. Okay, and telling you how you need to live and what it means to be free. Wow. Meanwhile, they're taking your little boys, put them in Boy Scouts, putting them in different programs, and putting the effeminate boys who will always exist and who have always existed since ancient times, taking those children and putting them in the closet, doing all kind of terrible things. This is the folklore behind the boogeyman. I've said this before, I'm gonna keep saying it. The boogeyman was a corrupted priest from Ireland, okay, who would convince the parents to that there was an issue with their child, so they could give up their child so that they could do all kinds of horrific things, largely probably sexual acts, okay? And then they hide in the closet, they hide under the bed. So every time they think of telling their parents, they're scared out of doing it. Okay, this is spiritual, this is deep, okay? And now while you're giving these children, your effeminate boys, to be abused by these people, they know in the back of their head from what they've studied and they've hidden from us that in Uganda, okay, they consider these same boys, let's see, it was homosexual intercourse was considered bien nukma kuma, I don't know, or a medicine for wealth. A medicine for wealth. Okay, this is in 1904. The natives believed that homosexual behavior could bestow the power of riches, especially upon the dominant male. Okay, and it says, Testament described homosexuality among adolescent boys in Bafia of central Cameroon. Gustave Holsteart, on his own travels through the region, similarly reported young boys playing a game called Jimbankongo, in which they chase each other through the trees like monkeys, finishing in reprehensible scenes. Now, I grew up with boys. I grew up playing with nothing but boys. Okay? I have seen. I am not surprised. This happens in indigenous cultures everywhere. But I have seen this myself. I've seen it myself. Did you hear it again? The boys would chase each other through the trees like monkeys, finishing in reprehensible scene. What you think that is? Now don't go too far in your imagination, but I can attest this happens. Okay, this is not white supremacy. This is not new. It's ancient. It's ancient. Okay. Now I'm gonna go to the Americas for y'all. I'm gonna go to the indigenous Americas because that's one of the first chapters of this. For you aboriginals, okay, who are freshly aboriginals, probably haven't even done your genealogy to make sure, but you think because of the color of your skin and you watching people talking about the true indigenous of the Israelites and all this other stuff, but you haven't done your genealogy, you haven't went into the documents, because if you go into the documents, you will see it very clear. Okay, y'all want to act like two-spirit people or indigenous gays, lesbians, female warriors, okay, didn't exist, but I hate to tell you, but I really don't hate to tell you. I love to tell you this, but in the West Indies and much of Central and South America, gender variant behavior was observed by early Spanish and Portuguese explorers, but not well studied, mostly because the native populations were quickly devastated. That's what y'all want to tell. That's the lie y'all want to tell. All Native American civilizations were polytheistic and worshipped a wide range of gods, goddesses, and nature spirits. The third gender natives especially honored Xochiquetzal, the Aztec goddess of spring and sexuality, who is associated with the same-sex attraction, cross-dressing, and various types of arts and crafts. And so this is a goddess. Wow. In one popular narration, I'm gonna call her Zoe, okay, transforms herself into a barren hermaphrodite, which is now intersex, after being raped by Tezcatlipoca, the Aztec god of nighttime and illusion. So he was a sodomite, okay, he raped her. In another story, the goddess assumes a male form known as Xochipilla, I don't know, who was especially worshipped by homosexual natives and presided over flowers, art, dance, music, perfume, and shamanic trance. So not only, Aztec rituals often included homosexual acts as a way of communing with the gods. And Aztec cosmology described 4 ages, the previous of which was said to be marked by a prevalence of peace, artistry, and homosexual relations. Okay? Masculine type lesbians are known as Patlaque and often join Aztec men in war. The male warriors were famous for their brutal combat and regularly sodomized defeated soldiers as a celebration of their victory. So these people talking about bug breaking and different things like that. In ancient cultures, they were doing that in war and when they would invade people and all kinds of different things like that. So, and it wasn't just white people doing it to black people. So it was all over there. But I broke that down as well, because it's very buck breaking, specifically in slavery times, was pretty much a myth. But go watch that video. Okay. Where was I at? Prostitution was regularly sodomized. Was also common in Aztec society, and handsome teenage boys were especially valued. Okay, among the Maya, homosexuality was associated with Chin, a dwarfish nature spirit. In Mayan narratives, Chin introduced homoeroticism to the nobles and allowed them to take handsome youths from lower class families to serve as partners for their sons. These early Mesoamerican same-sex unions were a type of marriage among the Maya and recognized under tribal law. Okay, now this is one from a church. This is 1585, 1650. The Roman Church launched brutal inquisitions throughout Latin America during the first few centuries of colonial rule, wherein homosexual behavior was severely punished with fines, religious penance, public humiliation, floggings, imprisonment, and death. So this is the Spanish. Okay, these are the Europeans who are having these issues. Okay. Not the other way around. You literally, I have searched to find any indigenous groups, any native groups who kill gay people for being gay or for gay acts or for anything like that. Okay, I have yet. It wasn't until after these Europeans came over here, these Spanish came over here and started brainwashing folks, that this started to become a thing. It never was a thing before. And if you could bring some historical accounts, show me, because I can't find it. So the Roman Church launched brutal. Oh yeah, I read that already. In 1575, Spain's King Philip II issued an edict sparing indigenous natives from the torture, declaring them incapable of good reason. During the mid-17th century, Inquisition authorities uncovered a network of sodomites, basically gays, in Mexico City and reported and consequently reported the abomination, in quotation marks, to Spain. From 1656 to 1663, hundreds of homosexuals were consequently executed during a well-publicized effort to purge Mexico of sodomy. The convicted homosexuals were marched to San Lazaro, garroted in public, and their dead bodies burned. During the same time period in Cuba, the ruling Spanish captain general sentenced 20 effeminate sodomites to death by burning. Cuban homosexuals and prostitutes were also exiled to Cayo Cruz, a small island in Havana Bay, commonly known as Cayo Puto, or Island of the Faggots. Similar disparaging attitudes toward homosexuals were expressed in a 1791 Havana newspaper article entitled A Critical Letter About the Man-Woman, which condemned the effeminate sodomites that apparently thrived in 18th century Havana. So all of this is coming from these Spanish, from these Catholics, from these Christians. It's literally one religion. And that's the other crazy thing. Christianity is the only religion that they're using this with. And they're using it while they're trying to conquer culture. Like, this crazy. Something cannot be white supremacy if it existed long before white supremacy. Okay? It's really simple. Native American tribes use a wide variety of names for their Two-Spirit brethren. The Mojave of the American Southwest, for example, called Two-Spirit men Aliha, and Two-Spirit women Huame. In most Native American societies, Two-Spirit men were assigned a semi-sacred status and often served as shamans or ceremonial dancers. In battle, Two-Spirit men were commonly put in charge of bringing food and ammunition to the male warriors, with Two-Spirit women, while Two-Spirit women often undertook a man's lifestyle and actively participated in the fighting and hunting expeditions. Many of the Two-Spirit men were transgender. They lived among the women and excelled in all their tasks, as they still do today, but were not known to practice castration. They didn't need to. Both Two-Spirit, but they could. In other cultures, they did. Both Two-Spirit men and women cross-dressed or wore specific types of clothing and feathers, and their engagement in homosexual behavior was accepted by their fellow tribesmen. One of the best-known American Two-Spirits is Weewa, 1849 to 1896. Now, this is my great grandfather's age. Okay, this is a time where my great grandfather was alive. That is not that far away. Full-blooded Choctaw, a celebrated Zuni shaman who was invited to Washington, D.C. in 1886 and subsequently honored, photographed, and widely discussed. Weewa's ambiguous gender and sexuality created a sensation among Washington's elite, and the Two-Spirit was dined at the White House and introduced to U.S. President Grover Cleveland. Homosexuality was punishable by death in early colonial America, and one of the first known executions of sodomy occurred in Dutch-ruled New Amsterdam, now New York. In 1646, Jan Creole was convicted of a second offense of sodomy, condemned in the name of God, choked to death, and then burned to ashes. This is what they were doing to their own people. We wasn't out. What? This is what they was doing to their people. This ain't had nothing. This is not our problem. This is not our problem. This didn't have nothing to do with us. This is England. When the United States of America was established after gaining independence from England in 1776, homosexuality and cross-dressing were strictly prohibited, and sodomy was punishable by death in nearly every American state. You crazy? Sick bastards. The laws mostly served as a public declaration against homosexual behavior and were only occasionally brought to trial. Shortly after, which means if somebody accused you of it, they were just going to kill you. Shortly after independence, American states replaced the death penalty for homosexuality with long prison sentences that remained in effect throughout the 19th century. In 1850s California, this is 1850s. For example, a convicted homosexual could be sentenced from 5 years to life in prison. While most Latin American countries followed Spain and Portugal by decriminalizing sodomy in the 1800s, English-speaking nations such as the United States, Canada, and many Caribbean islands mirrored Britain and kept their sodomy laws intact well into the 20th century. Do you know the sodomy laws in some states just ended in the 70s? In the 70s? And people want to act like it. People really want to act like this is, folks wasn't fighting for nothing. You literally, all somebody had to do was accuse you, and you could go to jail for life. I think you had sex with this man. You could go to jail for life? How can you even prove that? That's crazy. I mean, it's just really ridiculous. Anyway, I think I've made my point at this point. I've made my point. If you want to be silly, if you want to be willfully ignorant, if you want to deny the truth and the facts, I've given you so many historical accounts already. I'm tired of reading. My throat dry. Y'all can look this stuff up. I've given you names. I've given you dates, books, titles in these videos. Places to search, names, terms to call that they called them in ancient times before white supremacy existed. So no, it's not white supremacy. It's not when it happens in the animal kingdom. It's not. It happens in just about every animal kingdom. Okay, everyone, insects, flowers. There's intersex. There's bisexual flowers. There's same-sex couples in just about every. Birds, fish. It's a generational curse that needs to be broken. Okay, and people are awakening. This is time. It's time. I wanted to put this information out a long time ago, but it wasn't time. It is time now. It's time. All right. I will see y'all in the next video. Comment below what you think. If you found some information, if you can find some accounts of some natives being homophobic before Europeans, please. Okay. All right. I'll see you on the next video.